Hey there, Mason Nation, and welcome to this week's episode of Touch Base, where we'll be delivering to you everything you need to know about everything there is to know about baseball. My name's Aaron Witten.
And I'm Ryan Donahoe.
And today is our very last episode of the 2016 year and of the first semester here at George Mason. So for that, we'll be bringing to you an extended version of our usual Touch Base to get you up to date on the baseball world. For today, we'll be touching on all four bases, with the first base focusing on the most recent free agent frenzy, second base focusing on the hot stove rumors, and third base agreeing upon the collective bargaining agreement between the Major League Baseball and the MLB Players Association. And then the fourth base, the home run, will be us wrapping up our semester. So with that, let's jump right into it.
Okay. All right, so like you said, we'll go to first base first with the free agency that's been going on. A lot of stuff's been happening. Some of the biggest free agent names have come off the board nearly a month into the hot stove season. Big Fish Mark Melancon, Carlos Beltran, Yoenis Cespedes, Josh Reddick, and Rich Hill have all signed long-term agreements pretty early into the season, so it's a little impressive there. Edwin Encarnacion, Jose Bautista, Dexter Fowler, Justin Turner, Ian Desmond, Mark Trumbo, and Aroldis Chapman all still remain to be signed. So there definitely is still more action to be done.
That's right.
But first up, we can talk about that big Yoenis Cespedes contract that he got, 4 years, $110 million, $27.5 million a year. We thought that it was good that he opted out, and we think that, obviously $110 million isn't a bad contract. So what do you think about his value with the New York Mets?
For where he ranks with all the players in Major League Baseball, he has one of the highest average annual values. I think he has the highest ever average annual for an outfielder.
Yeah.
And I think for somebody with his production, he definitely merited it. I could say somebody like Manny Ramirez or like J.D. Martinez is really good. There's a lot of guys I could list off that I'd say probably deserve higher average annual values than he does. So I am a bit surprised that he got that much money, but I'm not saying he doesn't deserve it.
Yeah. Anytime someone gets $100 million plus, especially in only 4 years, that's usually about 5 or 6 years, they're getting paid. So, he had a good year last year, though, with 31 home runs and 86 RBI. So at least he's still producing, and he's still got that cannon in center field, too. So he'll be there for a few years to come.
And I think that factors into it, his age. He's going to be 31, and I think the reason that he got such a high average annual value was because he did not get a 4 or 5 year contract. I believe he was looking to seek a 5-year contract. He ended up getting 4, but I think for him it's a steal. He gets $27.5 million a season.
Definitely.
You can't really bark about that. So.
And also the Mets should be getting them in his prime, so it can work out for both sides.
Exactly.
But next up is Josh Reddick. Put the pen to the dotted line with the Houston Astros for 4 years, $52 million. That's $13 million annually. Known particularly for his glove. He's got that cannon as well, along with Cespedes. But he also did well offensively last year. He hit .280 with 10 home runs. Not too many RBIs, but 30 and 37. But after he was switching off between started with the Athletics and then went to the Dodgers later in the season. But he also had his highest total WAR back in 2012, which I think is what they are trying to pay him for, which is that 4.5, which is obviously creating a lot of worth for a team.
Yeah, it's a good signing for the Houston Astros. They're definitely getting him in his prime. He's 29 years old.
Yep.
Like you said, he's known for his defense. The guy's got a cannon out there in right field. He usually leads right fielders in assists. But this year he did not win the Gold Glove. Mookie Betts won the Gold Glove out in right field, which I was a bit surprised by. But his bat, for $13 million, that's a pretty good deal because if he puts up about 2 WAR, $8 million of WAR, he'll be making out for what his deal is. But the bat, I thought it was going to be a lot more. When he was coming up through the Red Sox system, he was looking like a power threat. He did hit 32 home runs his first year with the Athletics when he was traded from the Boston Red Sox in the Andrew Bailey deal. But, for the Astros, this is a good deal. He's probably going to replace Marisnik, who was out there, and I don't think he's a regular. And now, they got Gaddis, they got McCann, they've got Altuve, they got a lot of really good guys.
Yeah, I think that they were just definitely disappointed last year after having a good 2015 season, then come back in 2016 and did not make the playoffs. But they still got all those young guys in Correa as well, and like you said, Jose Altuve, who's almost an MVP candidate every single year. So they have a good core of players now, and we'll see what they can do. But next up is the old veteran in Carlos Beltran, most likely going to be a DH for the majority of his new contract for 1 year, $16 million, also with the Houston Astros. Last season, he in his 19th season, so he's still putting up good numbers. He hit .295 with 29 home runs, 93 RBIs, and he is not a stolen base threat like he used to be. I know back in 2004 with that, won a 30-30 player with 30 home runs and 30 stolen bases, but he can still definitely provide power and provide a good average for any team, and a good DH option for the Houston Astros.
Yeah, he is dragging a bit on the base paths. He's running around like he has a piano in his back pocket. But I mean, the guy hit 29 home runs. He's there to provide power. So, you know, that he does.
Yeah. I mean, hey, it's tough when you get old. You got a little more weight on you. He's doing his best, but hopefully he'll be able to pick up the speed a little bit, and he's still got the bat speed, so I think that's what the Astros care about.
And I mean, for $16 million, that's a steal, especially the numbers he put up between the Rangers and the Yankees last year. That's pretty much the going rate for somebody with his kind of bat. And like you said, they're paying him probably to be a DH. The Astros this offseason, they're just dishing out all that dough. You'd think they're the New York Yankees, but they do remain the Houston Astros. And I do like this signing. So it is overall a good signing. Like you said, he's no longer that 40-40 player.
And he's also that veteran presence. He can help out with a lot of those young guys that they do have.
Sure.
Next up, Andrew Cashner, also a one-year deal for $10 million. He's got that with the Texas Rangers. Didn't have a very good WAR last year, actually negative .7. He was 5-11 with a 5.25 ERA. He had a great year in 2014 with that 2.5, and I think that's what their Rangers are going to try and get out of him again. But he might be able to turn it around. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, you know, he's got the fastball velocity. He was a starter originally on with the Cubs, and then he became a reliever. And then when they traded him to the Padres, he became a starter again. I think if he doesn't work out as a starter, definitely you could use him as a flame-throwing back of the end bullpen kind of guy, like a Wade Davis, who was a starter with the Tampa Bay Rays, and then he became an all-star closer for the Kansas City Royals. Overall, like you said, this guy had a horrible year. He had a negative 0.7 WAR. But yeah, they're definitely paying for the 2.55 ERA. I don't know about you. I mean, this signing's okay. Texas is a hitter's ballpark, so I don't know how he's going to fare there.
Yeah, he might put up a similar year to last year, but you never know. He could try and turn it around. Like you said, he definitely still has that velocity going.
And on the flip side, he's actually going to be able to grow out his beard. You know, he had to shave.
He might have that long, full beard now, so maybe that'll improve his ERA a little bit. You never know. Confidence. But okay, next is the former independent league Long Island Duck, Rich Hill. After coming off a great year last year, 3 years, $48 million is what he just signed with the LA Dodgers. He was a stud last year, definitely. Older, a little later in his career, but he was able to put up a 2.1 ERA. He was 12-5, whip under 1. And he had over 110 innings pitched last year too, so that was good for him.
He's a late bloomer, to say the least. The guy had a really good year. He's not a flamethrower like these young guys that are coming up, like Yordano Ventura. He's crafty. He's got that curveball that just kind of curves in there. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, curveball.
So, like you said, he's got the 2.12 ERA. The problem with me with the signing, he's 36, and he didn't provide a lot of innings last year. He had the groin strain, and then he had some blister issues on his fingers. So durability-wise, I don't exactly know what the Dodgers are getting here. They are definitely getting somebody that they know can perform alongside Kenta Maeda and Clayton Kershaw. But durability-wise, for me, it's a concern. I don't know about you.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely a concern. Obviously, if you're paying him all that money, you want him to be out there. But also, last year we saw him in the playoffs. He was able to at least maintain to where he could come back for the playoffs. Didn't pitch too great in Game 2 against the Nationals, but he still had a great year, and I think that they're hoping that they can get that back out of him again. Next is the former National now, the bullpen ace, Mark Melancon, signed a 4-year, $62 million deal with the San Francisco Giants. Totaled 1.64 ERA last year. Very good. 71 innings pitched out of that closer role. He was with Pittsburgh and then traded to the Nationals at the trade deadline. He only walked 1.5 per 9 innings and a career-high 9.0 strikeout to walk ratio. Usually doesn't strike out too many guys, which isn't too common for closers, but he was able to get those numbers up last year, and he was great for the Nationals. I know watching him, it was very impressive. I would have liked to see them. They tried to sign him. I think they offered him a little less than 60, though, and he took the highest offer, so you can't blame him for that, but we'll see what the Nationals are going to do after that without him.
Yeah, like the first thing I noticed when I saw him come over to the Nationals, because that was, besides when he pitched with the Boston Red Sox, this was pretty much the first time I'd really seen him pitch, because I don't watch a lot of Pittsburgh games, but the guy looks like he's 50 years old.
Yeah,
but
he looks
obviously
old,
his talent is a lot better than a 50-year-old.
Yeah.
Like you said, he had 71.1 innings pitched this year, so he's got a pretty good arm on him. He's not a flamethrower. Interestingly enough, since 2013, he has the lowest ERA between him, Kenley Jansen, and Aroldis Chapman.
Wow.
He has a 1.60 ERA. And you'd think between those guys, I definitely wouldn't have pegged, Melanson to have the lowest ERA. But, it was a good signing, and he has the ability to opt out after the first or second year of his contract with the San Francisco Giants, which I thought was actually really interesting on their part.
He also, I believe, had the most saves in the past few years, too. An all-star also those past couple years. So he's really turning into one of the elite closers in the league. Honorable mentions we have in the free agent signings with R.A. Dickey, Bartolo Colon, Charlie Morton, Anderson Volquez, and Brett Cecil. What do you think about all of their signings?
Well, interestingly enough, I didn't see this one coming. R.A. Dickey and Bartolo Colon, two 40-year-olds, went to the same team. They went to the Atlanta Braves. The Braves are a really young team. They've got their pipeline farm system coming up, so they're going to be really good. It is a good move on their part because both of the guys are really durable. Dickey's the knuckleballer, so you're going to get at least 200 innings from him. Are they going to provide stellar results? No. They gave them contracts to pitch as the fourth and fifth starters in that team, which I think is still good. Nowadays, you're getting $12 million, pitch out of the five spot. Really, that's actually pretty good thinking about it. And then I was surprised by Brett Cecil. Got a $30 million contract with the Cardinals.
Yeah, very impressive. I like what you said about R.A. Dickey and Bartolo Colon, or Big Sexy, as they call him. We'll see if maybe he can hit another home run or two, like he hit a home run last year for the Mets that everybody loved. But I think it's good for the Braves. They got a young team. They're a little bit in a rebuilding phase, and hopefully those guys can teach the younger guys what it is like to pitch in the major leagues. And next, we'll round the bases. Round first, go to second base. The hot stove rumors. A lot of murmuring around the league, and people talking about what could happen in the future. I know the big one, at least for the Nationals, was the talks between the Pirates and Andrew McCutchen. They were talking about how they wanted to make a trade this offseason for Andrew McCutchen, the center fielder for the Pittsburgh Pirates. He's still guaranteed through 2017, sorry about that, at $14 million with a 2018 club option at $14.75. The problem is the Nationals would definitely have to give up some prospects for him, and he has had a little downtick in production last year. They would most likely have to give up Victor Robles, Eric Fiedel, or even Lucas Giolito, all three of their best prospects. But the main, I think, decision process behind that would be if they can get a center fielder in there and move Trey Turner, who played great for them last year, back to shortstop, and get Danny Espinosa, who's been a good National, but not always the most productive with his bat. If they can get him out of the lineup, honestly, we'll see what they'll be able to do. And Andrew McCutchen, he's a veteran, MVP caliber, has won the MVP, and we'll see what he can do. He only hit .256 last year after being a career .290 hitter. He still had 26 home runs and over 70 RBIs, but I don't know. Would you like to see McCutchen in Nationals uniform? Because I'm still a little on the fence about it.
Well, first of all, honorable mention, Danny Espinosa can grow a mad beard.
Yeah,
that
definitely,
guy can grow as thick a facial beard.
He actually had the thickest beard. I don't know if you've seen this picture, but his picture for the season he had a massive beard and a big old mustache. The president asked him to take it off because I guess he didn't like the way it looked. He was probably intimidated by the manliness of Danny Espinosa, honestly, but we'll see. He can grow a beard. So if that's one thing, if they value beard growers like him and Jason Worth, they may want to keep him on the team.
That's where the beard strength lays within the team.
Definitely.
But I mean, going back to the Kutch point, if you're going to acquire him, you're probably hoping you're going to get the years that he used to have. Former 2013 MVP. So the guy has the past ability to do stuff like that. Now the question is, going into his 30s, is he going to be able to continue doing that going forward? Giving up the farm, Victor Robles, Eric Fiedel, or Lucas Giolito. I think if you give up Giolito, that's a lot, because Giolito, I think, is going to be a stud. That guy's going to be so good. Rated on a 20 to 80 scale with Major League Baseball's minor league talent. They give him an 80 on his fastball. The guy cranks. He throws like upper 90s, and I think nowadays some guys have trouble hitting that high fastball with the velocity. I think he'd be a really good member to stay with the Washington Nationals, especially with Scherzer and Strasburg, what he can learn from those guys. They got Joe Ross, you know what I'm saying, who could also be included in the deal. But going back to your point, does Danny Espinosa get non-tendered because Trey Turner goes over to shortstop? I feel like that'd probably be the best move because you could bring somebody else up. But
Yeah, definitely. The other problem I see with this deal personally is Ben Revere you have signed as well. You would have to get rid of him, which I think they are okay with doing. He had a pretty bad year last year after being a almost career 300 hitter. But if they give up Victor Robles, you never know what that outfield could look like in the future with Jason Worth leaving, and as we'll get to later, Bryce Harper potentially leaving in a few years. That outfield could be really depleted in the coming years, and without Victor Robles, you might not have too many people in the system to fill those spots.
You are very right. So the next thing we'll move on to is the Boston Red Sox have acquired Chicago White Sox ace Chris Sale, which I am shaking my head over because they gave up the farm to acquire Chris Sale. Now, this is not to say Chris Sale isn't good. He's one of the best pitchers in baseball.
Definitely.
But they gave up third base prospect Yoan Moncada, who was ranked the best prospect in minor league baseball. They gave up flamethrower Michael Kopech, who registered 105 on the gun 3 times, and then they gave up 2 unreported prospects for later, one of which was Luis Alexander Bazabe, who's actually going to be pretty good as well. He's a power hitter. Sale still does have 3 years on his contract, so I can understand why they had to give up so much for him because they've got the team control, plus he's really good, but I feel like Dombrowski, ever since he came over from the Tigers, he just gets rid of minor league talent. And personally, I follow minor leagues very closely, and I did not like this trade because I think Moncada is going to be a beast. I don't know what you feel.
Honestly, while I love prospects, I can't really fault a team like this for getting somebody who's been proven to be as dominant as he is, MVP or Cy Young caliber pitcher every single year. The only question I would have is what rumors have been coming out about his arm and how that arm might be. That would be what I would be worried about as a Boston Red Sox fan. But with that rotation of Porcello, Chris Sale, and David Price, you can't be too unhappy with a 3-headed monster like that. That's a very impressive rotation.
Especially Porcello coming off winning the 2016 AL Cy Young. Price is usually a stalwart. You've got Eddie Rodriguez, who's really good. They acquired Drew Pomeranz at the deadline. And now they have Sale. Sale's really good. He went 17-10 this year at a 3.34 ERA. He walked only 45 and 226.2 innings. And especially with that kind of delivery, it looks like the guy's arm is going to fall off every time he throws his fastball.
Exactly. So I don't doubt it when they say that his arm is having troubles, but you never know. Now three Cy Young pitchers on their team, correct? So we'll see what they can do. I mean, it's a good team. It's a good team. They had a good year last year, just were unfortunately unable to finish, but we'll see. Another big news around here was the news, as I alluded to earlier, about Nationals right fielder Bryce Harper. An anonymous source allegedly talked to USA Today saying that Bryce Harper and the Washington Nationals had some conversations about a long-term deal where Bryce Harper was asking for 10 years with $400 million plus, which would be a huge contract, well over the biggest contract that's ever been signed by Giancarlo Stanton at $325 million. But with the Nationals saying, the rumor is that they have just totally stopped and said, okay, $400 million, if that's what you want, then we're not going to give that to you. I'm not sure if that's the best thing in the world, but I do not think that Bryce can really be making those kind of demands right now after the year he had last year. He's still got 2 more years with the Washington Nationals, so I definitely think that that contract is still in the picture if he's able to get back to what he was like in 2015. But at this point, I don't think it would make sense for them to sign a deal like that. With 2 more years left, they have him on the roster. And then, I mean, why would you do that after a year like last year? Let's see what he can do in the future, and hopefully he can get back to that MVP season.
Yeah, I'm skeptical of a deal coming to fruition just because his agent is Scott Boras.
Yeah.
Scott Boras is unanimous for letting his players go to free agency rather than signing team-friendly contracts, which, I mean, does make sense. You want the best for your player, plus he gets, you know, a little bit of the interest off their contracts. But to ask $400 million, especially considering he hasn't put up the numbers anywhere close to Giancarlo Stanton, the poor year he had last year, he only played 147 games. He had a dismal season compared to his, you know, his MVP campaign before. I don't think he gets $400 million. Maybe the Yankees, you know, are dumb enough at that point if he puts up these numbers to give him $400 million. I mean, go ahead, be my guest. As a Boston Red Sox fan, knock it out of the park, sign for $400 million. But I don't think at this point he deserves the money.
Yeah, well, the other thing that you could argue with that you get with Bryce Harper is you'll get ticket sales, you'll get all of these jerseys. I mean, he is he's a fun guy to watch. He's got a fiery attitude. But like you said about Scott Boras, interestingly enough, actually, as the Nationals signed Steven Strasburg to a long-term deal last year, with whose agent is also Scott Boras, a lot of people were surprised about that, saying that he never does those kind of things. He always lets him go to free agency. I mean, Strasburg got a ton of money with over $170 million. But we'll see if he's able to do that again. I think Scott Boras and GM Mike Rizzo have a pretty good relationship, but I don't think that Bryce Harper is the same kind of guy as Steven Strasburg. I think Bryce Harper likes the big lights. I think he likes the fast cars and a lot of money, so we'll see.
But especially coming off that 243 average, the 24 home runs, the 86 RBIs. I mean, the guy's already made a lot of money, but, if you keep putting up those stats, you can't go out and buy Lambos every week, so.
Yeah, and he's talking, I've heard a few things about him saying that it's a possibility that if he can get a contract like that, he could have over $1 billion worth of contracts with all his endorsements, his team deal, and all that, which would be very impressive. Obviously, he would have a fast life if he's able to do that. But we'll see. We'll see if his production goes down, though. I'm sure those endorsement deals will also start to fade away, and that big contract won't. I would love to see him have 2 great years with the Washington Nationals coming up, and I guess we'll see what happens after that when he hits free agency.
Possible Tiger Woods 2.0. So
yeah, you never know. Yeah, you never know, exactly. So next, Edwin Encarnacion, Toronto Blue Jays. Not really sure how that's going to happen. I think he was a bit disappointed with the offers that they had made, and they kind of moved right on to other free agents after making those offers. But most recent reports have him in beginning talks with the Indians and Texas Rangers possibly. Where do you think he'll end up?
I thought originally he was going to go to the Toronto Blue Jays. Obviously, I don't think he's going to go back there. They have Justin Smoke at first base. They signed Morales, Kendrys Morales, away from the Royals. I mean, he's an okay bat. I don't think he's been that good since he was really good with the Angels before he broke his leg on that that grand slam.
Grand slam, walk-off home run. But
I think that maybe Edwin Encarnacion goes to the Cleveland Indians. I think if he goes to the Indians, that makes them an instant World Series contender again, especially with the rotation they have. Corey Kluber coming back. They got Carrasco, Bauer. The guy hit 42 home runs last year, Encarnacion. So he's a power bat. Now, this goes back to the point, McCutch. Are you going to pay for the seasons where he's in his late 30s and he might not perform? So that is really the question that they're going to have to answer.
Definitely. He is coming off a good year, though, so he's in a good position to have some leverage with teams, and we'll see where he ends up. Next is the closers. A lot of those 3 closers, as we talked about Mark Melancon earlier, now that's still available are Kenley Jansen and Aroldis Chapman. He was offered 5 years. Kenley Jansen was offered 5 years, $80 million by the Miami Marlins. And Wade Davis is kind of the fallback option for the Cubs, is what some people are saying. They need to, I think they're hoping to re-sign Aroldis Chapman, but not too sure if that will happen. Both very talented closers. Kenley Jansen's a young guy who showed a lot of potential with the Dodgers the past few years. Where do you think either of those guys will end up?
I think Jansen, hopefully, I think he returns to the Dodgers. I don't think Chapman or Jansen will go to the Cubs. They have Hector Rondon, who was the closer before they acquired Chapman from the Yankees. They also have Pedro Strop. They had Trevor Cahill, who I believe is a free agent now. They've got Mike Montgomery, who they traded a first base prospect for to the Seattle Mariners. I could see Jansen possibly going to the Cubs. I think that it's more likely Chapman goes to the Cubs because Theo Epstein knows, what he has in him, especially considering he played for their 2016 World Series roster. So I don't know.
I don't know how he'll be with the almost bad memories, Chapman, and with the Cubs last year. He could have had a potentially almost season-ending, or not season-ending, career-ending outing. He was just getting hammered by the Cleveland Indians in Game 7, but they were able to rally around him after giving up a few runs late in the game, and they ended up winning that game. So now he's sitting pretty. I think if that happened last year or so, he wouldn't be in as good a position right now. But he is demanding a 6-year, $100 million deal, which is the other thing about him. So I don't think he would be in that position if it weren't for the Indians or the Cubs coming back last year. Melancon was able to get $62 million, as we talked earlier. While he has a lower ERA than Chapman has had in recent years, he doesn't have the velocity that Chapman has. He doesn't have the star mentality and all these things that Chapman has. So we'll see. I think Chapman will definitely get the biggest deal out of those 3.
I don't think it was surprising that Melancon was the first to come off the board. He shattered Jonathan Papelbon's single free agent record for a reliever. He signed a 50-year $1 million deal, and I think that Papelbon was way better than Melancon, and Melancon got $12 million more than him. So I think that speaks to what the market has come to for free agent, fireballers at the end of the bullpen.
Yeah, and the Giants definitely needed it too.
Yes.
So next, Mark Trumbo is another guy out there talking about maybe re-signing with the Orioles for 4 years, around $55 million. Had a great year last year with all the power that he displayed. Good year for him to try and get his money after being traded for a backup catcher. So now after hitting all those home runs, he's in the position to get paid. Hopefully he can, hopefully I'm sure for him, he hopes he can do that. If Baltimore is not able to re-sign him though, he's looking at Toronto possibly, or a few other places that I've heard. They've also recently released Chris Carter, first baseman, and to pique some interest in for Dan Duquette for the Orioles as well. So they've got a few options if they're unable to land him, and I'm not sure where they'll go, but they'll definitely have somebody there at that first base position.
Yeah, I wouldn't pay him personally $75 million. I think that he has a lot of strikeout problems. The average isn't really up there. He does have power. That's not doubted. Yeah. But I feel like that you could definitely go another route, inexpensive, Chris Carter maybe, and you could get pretty much the same production that you got from him.
Yeah, definitely. Teams are also contacting the Minnesota Twins regarding the availability of the powerhouse second baseman Brian Dozier. Great player. Dodgers are the main team to really talk with the Twins. Recent reports also have it that the Yankees GM Brian Cashman has been shown interest in Dozier. So he can definitely get a large contract, one of the few hitters out of that second base position that's really perennially up in there with the average, and he's also got some power too. So any team that's able to land him, whether it be the Dodgers or the Yankees, will be happy with it.
I think that people are just trying to make news that Cashman's looking at Dozier. I don't think they will acquire him. I don't think they've ever intended to acquire him. Is he a good player? Yeah, he hit 42 home runs for a second baseman, which is unheralded. Yeah. You never hear of people hitting 42 home runs. And look at the guy. He's like a Dustin Pedroia type of player. The guy's so small, and he hit 42 bombs. They'd have to pretty much give up the farm. They got Gleyber Torres from the Chicago Cubs in the Aroldis Chapman deal. I feel like maybe for Dozier, he'd have to headline the deal. I know that sounds surprising, but that's how good Dozier is.
Yeah, definitely. So we'll see where he ends up, but I agree with you. I don't think he's really going to be a New York Yankee in the future.
So next thing we'll move on to is third base. We'll go from second to third. We'll round it. And we're going to be talking about the collective bargaining agreement between the Major League Baseball and the Major League Baseball Players Association and the owners. It was just renewed. It's for another 5 years. And so roster sizes are going to stay at 25 people. They were talking about possibly doing a 26-man roster. I think it's better that they did 25. The luxury tax threshold will expand to $208 million. It's going up from the 189. I feel like that's a good thing because Major League Baseball is allowing teams to spend more money, especially now that relievers are commanding a lot more money. I feel like that gives you a little more room to go with roster construction. So I don't know what you think about the luxury tax threshold.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's a good thing. Personally, I would almost like to see a salary cap type deal in Major League Baseball.
Football, like
NFL? I'm sometimes alone in that, but we'll see. These contracts are getting extremely high, though, so raising the luxury tax would definitely help out with the increased payroll for teams, too.
And to go with the high contracts, they've also raised the minimum salary for Major League Baseball players on active rosters. They raised it up about $50,000 to $550,000 by the 2019 system, the 2019 season, and I think that's a pretty good improvement for the MLB Players Association when they had to negotiate this deal. And then one of the bigger points is the qualifying offer system, which has really been renovated. Revenue sharing clubs that take in a lot of money, like the Red Sox, Yankees, the Dodgers, have to pay money back to Major League Baseball, and those clubs will lose their second and fifth highest draft picks in the upcoming qualifying offer system that starts in the 2017 season, while all other teams will lose their second highest. What do you think of that?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, but it makes sense for the teams that are making the most money that they have to do those kind of things. They have a little bit of a disadvantage when it comes to that. Not that it's their fault, but we'll see where that goes with that.
Yeah, and then another point to add on to the qualifying offer system is that players throughout their career will only be able to be extended a qualifying offer once, which I think helps players like Stephen Drew and Kendrys Morales when they were not signed until after the Amateur 4 draft. And I think that for certain players that really helps them. And then the hard bonus cap on the amateur draft that comes in July. Teams are only allowed to spend $5 million, which I think limits some young kids coming out of high school to the amount of money that they can make, but I think that's only fair.
Definitely. And lastly, I think the biggest news for the casual fan is that the All-Star Game will no longer decide home field advantage for the World Series. think that's a good idea. It's supposed to be a fun game. It'll now just be decided on whoever has the best record.
I don't think the Cubs would argue with you.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. All right, so are we now time for the home run, hitting around the bases, wrap up the episode. So I think it was a great semester here. I hope you all do well on your final exams, and I hope you all have a winter break. I am Ryan.
And I'm Aaron.
And we'll see you next semester.
We'll be seeing you in the 2017 season.
Yep, definitely.